So on the previous video, we were doing an example with the water balance model, and we gave a full walkthrough of some of the features that we have available in order to create your own custom scenario. And in this video, we're going to dig even deeper on some of the functionalities that we have available. And in this case, we're going to be cross-comparing against different custom scenarios that we have previously made. So on the last example, we were looking at a scenario where we have a mean climate scenario, and I think we had a default scenario operation. So if I want to go back to that one, I can go and click on public scenarios, and if I made that scenario public, which was practice, so let me look at it, here it is, the mean climate scenario practice run. If I look at the metadata, I can look at the description of the predefined scenarios that I selected, which was the default scenario and the mean climate scenario. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to run another scenario where we're going to compare the results that come out from changing the climate scenario. So this was a mean climate, and I'm going to change to use maybe an extreme climate scenario. So what I'm going to do now is create another scenario which we're going to compare against the one that we previously made. So I go to my model section and I'm going to select the water balance again, which is where I'm at, and I'm going to create a new custom scenario. On the previous practice run, we were looking at the mean climate, and in this case, I'm just going to change and move to the extreme stress climate scenario. So on this scenario, if we look at the San Marcial inflows, we will see that in this case, most of the inflow values are below the mean flows on the historically on the reservoir, right? So let's close this one up. On the reservoir evaporation, I'm going to leave it as well as default scenario, but remember that you can mix and match however you like. I'm going to go back to climate. Then I'm going to go ahead and run this model. So let's put here practice scenario, extreme stress, select a water related role, click researcher, click on the scenario description, it auto populates, and I'm going to leave it as a public scenario so that it's available for everyone to see. I'm going to submit this. So once it's finished running, you'll get the dashboard with the results. But what we're going to focus now is comparing specific outputs against the output from the scenario that I previously executed. So to do that, we're going to go to the output catalog. And then I'm going to select some variables of interest that I might want to compare. So for example, let's start with the first one, which is Caballo Reservoir releases. And let's say I want to compare these Caballo Reservoir releases against the releases that happen on the other scenario. And of course, we can select more than once. We can also look at the reservoir storage, or we can also add what happened at the Hueco Bolson. And let's try these three. So I'm going to click on the option that says cross compare. Once I click cross compare, depending if you're logged in or not, you will get a pop-up window similar to this one. And this table basically has all of the executions that have been previously made on the system by other people. Right now we're in the public scenarios tab. So anything that's on that is public, that people have made available publicly, you can compare against any of those scenarios. Or if you have your own scenarios that are not public, you will be able to look at them here. So these are the scenarios that I've made on my own profile. So for now, I'm going to go to the public scenarios, and I'm going to look for the practice run that we previously made, which is this one here. So we can see that it says practice run. So I'm going to select that one, and I'm going to compare against the results from that one. So here it is. We have the side-by-side comparison of the output variables that we selected for the two different run scenarios. So on the left-hand side, I have the scenario that I just executed, and this is the extreme stress scenario. And on the right-hand side scenario, I have the mean climate scenario. So this is the mean practice run. And we have the descriptions from both scenarios, and now we have the data for both. Now, as you can see here, we instantly have available this information to compare against. Even though the graphs kind of look the same, similar in a way, well, we have to be careful about the units. So you can see that the range of units, it's a bit different comparing to the other one, right? So we can see here that let's change the units so that we can get a better idea of what we're looking at. Let's change it to thousands of acre feet instead. And this one too, let's change it to thousands of acre feet. That way we don't see that many zeros at the end. So now that we can see this is that on the mean climate scenarios, we do have more water availability in comparison to the other one. We can see that the range is much broader in this side in comparison to this side. So this is just for the Caballo Reservoir releases. And we can also look at this in the form of bar plots as well. Let's go back, let's go down. Okay, so this one is better to visualize because for Elephant Butte Reservoir, we have the storage capacity as our baseline. So it helps us have the same ranges on our graphs. So we can do a better comparison of what happened here. So here we can see that the storage in Elephant Butte on an extreme stress climate scenario is fairly low. Again, we can change the units. Let's change in this case to millions of cubic meters. Here it is, millions of cubic meters, right? So we can see that we have much less water available here on the extreme stress climate scenario, and we do have some very good years when it comes to the mean climate scenario, but it also has some dry years. So we can compare directly against that. So these are just some of the things that are available. So you can cross compare and look at different outputs side by side.